All right, let's go. All
All
right.
right.
Hi, everyone. So this is our latest episode of Ada Angels. I have with me Umed. He's awesome. I love him so much. I'm sure you guys love him. So I wanted to get him on here because it's going this way this time. I'm asking the questions. He's answering the questions, So you get to know a little bit more about him. So first question. I want to know more about where you're from.
All right. Thanks, Amanda, for having me. It's a great opportunity to come out here and talk about myself. Maybe I don't know.
Yes.
When I talk too much on my channel, people give me a lot of grief. So
Nope. I
this
want to
is
know
much
all
better,
the
I
things.
guess. Yeah. So my background, I was born and raised in Soviet Union in a part of the Soviet Union, which is in Central Asia.
Mhm.
And I lived there until the age of 18 or 19.
Mhm.
And then I got a job to work as a translator because I was all in linguistics back in the day.
Mhm.
I was going to the college. I finished my first year, and after the first year, I said, "Hey, I want to be a translator." And people laughed at me. My
Oh.
peers laughed at me. They said, "You need at least 5 years to be fluent in a language." And I was like, well, "I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I got it." So
Mhm.
I went and pitched myself to a local United Nations office.
Mhm.
I got denied a couple of times, and then the third guy basically accepted my application. And
Mhm.
I said, I just wanted practice. I don't even need to get paid or anything like that.
Mhm.
And the guy was American. He's like, "Yeah, I like you. I'll take a chance."
Awesome.
And yeah, and that's how I got exposed. This was like, you have to realize that the Soviet Union just fell apart and the whole like world just opened up to us. I had no
Mhm.
idea about so many concepts out there,
Mhm.
because we were kind of secluded. And the closest thing I can think of that exists right now when I watch videos is Cuba and North Korea. Those are the two countries that kind
Yeah.
of remind me of my childhood, because it's
Mhm.
like all these people live in their own bubble,
Yes.
brainwashed by their media,
Mhm.
and they think and act like in a way that is just so ridiculous to the outside world.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, my parents were in that sort of camp until the whole thing opened up, and then they said, "Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
this whole system was a little bit." I don't want to get too political, but that's where I kind of came up from.
Yeah.
And when I came to the States to study at the age of 19,
Mhm.
um, I was a clean slate. I had zero knowledge about how the markets worked, how the capitalism worked, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be a diplomat, and that just flew out the window really fast, because
Mhm.
the guy who was just graduating from that university when I went to where I went to in
Mhm.
Minnesota, he
Mhm.
said, "Umed," he pulled me to the side and said, "Umed, do not go that path. I'm just
Mhm.
graduating and I don't know what I'm going to do with my degree."
Mhm.
So that started got me started thinking about stuff. And
Yeah.
and I took a lesson, a class in economics 101, and I was
Mhm.
hooked. And 10 years or 15 years later, I was in finance and got my CFA charter holder designation, which is the hardest to get in finance. It's
Yeah.
just so much hours and so much depth you need to go through, but I enjoyed every second of it, because that's what I am. I'm a big nerd. I just go deep and try to find out things, which is why I am in Cardano right now.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, so that's
No.
the short story about me.
Yeah. No, I was telling you earlier, like I love all of it and I admire like that specific like skill set because not everybody has it. Definitely I don't have it. Like I love watching your numbers analysis and I watch the what do you call it, your spreadsheet thing. You've talked about your spreadsheet on multiple shows. I've watched them on like repeat so I can like understand what they are, so that I can explain them to other people as well in my way. But like you have to understand it the way that you explain it, and then I can explain it to other people. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, spreadsheets are quite a sort of a thing that we used. And by the way, I come from banking. I
Hmm.
spend a lot of time in banking because that's what, very much my interests are in technology and banking, and,
Hmm.
the money and technology, and which is why I find myself, strangely enough, in crypto.
Hmm.
But in banking, spreadsheets are the go-to sort of tool to
Yeah.
analyze numbers, and they're
Mhm.
so efficient in presenting information for
Mhm.
people who make decisions. And
Yes.
they could be very rigorous in you could be very rigorous in your analysis, but you could also be visual, which
Mhm.
is what I like to basically say. If you want to take a look at the numbers, here are the numbers, but here's
Mhm.
the chart that
Mhm.
basically summarizes X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
Yes.
So what I have in my spreadsheets is basically a sensitivity table, which is something that I use a lot.
Mhm.
Um, it just basically takes two or three scenarios and puts them in one easy to digest sort of format, and it requires getting used to a little bit to try to find out what's going on.
Mhm.
But once you get your head around that, it becomes very easy to
Mhm.
play with numbers.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about numbers too much in this
Yeah.
show. Maybe I
No.
don't know.
No, it's totally fine. Like they're a part of you, and I want you to feel comfortable talking with whatever you want to. But yes, we've seen the videos and they're amazing. I just wanted to give you like kudos to that. Like it's so helpful to me. Um,
Oh, thank you, thank you.
so you were also telling me a little bit of your like adventure stories of like your past. You said that you visited Korea. So what? Tell me a little bit more about your adventures in Korea.
Yeah, so in my past, where I was a banker, I used to travel a lot around the world. I was based in Washington D.C. I used to go to different countries. Traveled for work. You name it. I mostly focused on the Eurasian sort of part of the globe, because I
Mhm.
spoke Russian, and our our projects were required that I be there to actually understand the locals and whatnot,
Mhm.
and try to gather information to do the analysis. But I went to places like India, like North Africa.
Mhm.
I was in Algeria, which is quite an amazing country, to be honest
Wow.
with you. It's so undeveloped. Um, and later on, I was based in Europe, in Istanbul,
Mhm.
and from there I traveled a lot, because
Mhm.
the Turkish airline is basically connected to the whole world, and
Mhm.
I would just get bored and just get hop on the plane and go somewhere.
Mhm.
So that was the thing. I went to Korea. Back to your question, I
Mhm.
went to Korea in order to. We had a layover there. My friend had a wedding. My wife's friend had a wedding in Manila, so we flew over there, and I always wanted to, like, you know explore Seoul. And so
Mhm.
we went there. We had a layover. Thankfully, if you're an American, citizen, it's just easy. Just hop off the plane, and you go to the hotel and do whatever you
Mhm.
want. And one of the things that struck me is the sense of humor. I don't know if it's a sense of humor or not, but I took a picture of that back in the day. Um, there was this place next to our hotel, the coffee place, and you know what the name was? Shut
Mhm.
up and drink coffee.
Oh my
So
gosh. Okay,
shut up and
I want you to finish your story and then I have a funny story.
yeah, but yeah. So so we went to. That's one of the things that I like to do, going local. It's to
Mhm.
basically go to places where people eat food and try whatever local delicacy there is.
Mhm.
So we did not have too much of a reference, except for Anthony Bourdain shows.
Mhm.
And he's a big chef. He used to be a big chef in the
Mhm.
U.S. who had his own show. So we pulled up what he did in Seoul. So we said, okay, we're just gonna go and do whatever he did.
Mhm.
And we went to this. I forgot the name of the fish market, but we went to this fish market and tried the moving tentacles and whatnot. And the
Mhm.
lady was so amazing. This was probably the wildest food my wife tried, not me. I tried different things, but my
Uh-huh.
wife is like born and bred in the U.S. She doesn't have a lot of variety in her, diet. I think she
Mhm.
does go a little bit, here and there, but compared to what I eat, she's like very sort of has got a narrow selection of things. But
Mhm.
anyway, she tried that, and I think that's the wildest thing that she's tried. And the
Mhm.
lady was so good, because we did not know how to eat the delicacies that were in front of us. So she would
Mhm.
just pick whatever thing was in front of us and put it in the right sauce, and then just
Mhm.
hand feed us. So we were like 15 minutes there, and we were like opening our mouths, and she would be like a mother to us, both
That's
of us.
amazing.
Yeah.
Did you guys get the fish soup also? Like did you go to like the fish tank and like pick a fish and then they like cut up the fish for you? Did you do that also?
No, we went to this fish restaurant, and we
Mhm.
just looked for a place that serves this moving octopus thing
Okay.
or
So
whatever,
so in
and
in the fish market, it's an open fish market, would never fly in America, like all of the codes and stuff, you know. But it's amazing and it has all the things that you described, but it also has like the fresh catches of the day, just like aisles and aisles of fish, all kinds of fish. And so a lot of times when we used to go, we would just pick maybe like a large flounder, some tuna, and they would take it up to whatever restaurant, cut it up, and then the bones and all of the extras are not discarded. They make a soup out of it, and then you're also served the soup as well as your fish. And so we would eat the raw fish and all the sides and stuff like that. But yeah, the moving tentacles of the octopus is definitely a tourist favorite, and everyone has funny stories about it. But
it is a sensation that you could
mhm,
actually feel in your stomach after ingested it.
mhm.
It's really weird the first time, but hey, I tried it. I can say that.
You can say that,
The
yes.
Yeah, the other thing that kind of struck me was that there were a couple of girls that approached me and started speaking in Korean.
Mhm,
I was really lost because I thought, I don't look Korean at all. But
mhm,
they
mhm.
were like, "Oh, I thought you're Korean." Like,
Some of the
okay.
people are a little bit strange that way, yeah. But
Yeah.
but at the same time, I mean, I love Korea. Some of the guys kind of, I would say, I could see it. I could see why they would think it because the guys and girls, especially like my complexion is a little bit darker, but the girls, they love to be more white. I'm not saying that to like be
Oh,
racist or anything, but they want to be more white. So they use a lighter foundation, lighter everything to make themselves look white. And the guys too. The guys also
okay.
apply powder and things to their faces. It's hilarious. Like when I was like on the metro, you would see them like with their compacts, like doing the thing like, seriously, guys? Like
Another thing that I love that now that we are on this theme,
mm,
is Korean sauna. I don't know if I told you, I lived in DC, and there's this place called Centerville, not too
mhm,
far away from DC. It's like a huge complex of like different kinds of saunas. The
mhm,
biggest complex of saunas that I've seen in my life. And you
mhm,
just
mhm,
go there. It's like a hotel. And if you are really adventurous, you can just basically sleep overnight there.
mhm, mhm,
It's open 24/7,
mhm.
and you just go there. I'm describing this thing to you. I guess you know it better than me, but um
I want to know what the DC one sounds like.
yeah, no, well, I mean, this DC one is huge. You just go
Mhm,
there, it's like males only and then females only place. And
mhm.
then in the middle, there's a place where you put on your orange jumpsuit and then go
Yes.
in there. And they actually, you can, have family time there.
Mhm,
So, and there's a restaurant there. You could just basically, you get a token.
mhm,
By the way, some of the great ideas that I have sometimes is tokenization of these kind of facilities. For
mhm,
instance, in that place you have a bracelet that
mhm,
becomes like sort of your account.
mhm,
Whatever you do inside this establishment just basically gets recorded, and then when you leave, they charge your credit card. So
mhm,
something like that could be completely on the chain. I think
mhm,
it's so cheap for them. I don't know how much they pay for these equipment, but I'm sure that could completely replaced
mhm,
by blockchain like Cardano. Anyway, long story short, it was like $32 or $35 for
mhm,
the entrance,
mhm.
and it doesn't really matter how long you will stay there. So I
Right.
I always thought to myself that if anybody who is like into Korean food and Korean culture or whatnot,
Mhm,
they could just come to stay in that sauna and pay
mhm,
$35
mhm.
and
So,
just spend overnight because you could actually sleep there. It's
yes.
amazing.
So in Korea, the name of it is chimjilbang. So it basically is sauna, but also just like warm rooms. Um, and it's similar, very similar. to what you described. There's a really large popular one in Seoul, at like Yongsan Station. It's called Dragon Hill Spa, because Yongsan in Korean means Dragon Hill. So it's called Yongsan Spa. So Dragon Spa, Dragon Hill Spa. Um, and it's like 4 or 5 stories, and it's just all different facilities and things. And they have the RFID bracelet where you charge your stuff to it, and then your exit fee. But in Korea, it's only $7 to $10 to do it, not
Oh,
$35.
wow.
So it's and that one is a really large one. There's smaller ones too, but I really like that one because they have different themed rooms. They have like sea salt room, amethyst room, jade room, like all the different rooms. They have different elements that are supposed to do different things to you.
Yeah, exactly. We had the same thing too in
Mhm,
DC. It's like I've first time in my life they had these like detailed
mhm.
descriptions about like what they cure, not cure, help. I guess
Help
I don't
with.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, help with something. And then there was this ice room.
Ice
You could go
room.
to that
Yes.
ice room after a
So,
very hot sauna. You can go
mhm,
there and relax in the ice room. And
mhm,
another thing that kind of caught my attention there was the TVs everywhere, right?
mhm,
And I
mhm.
used to watch these Korean shows and the funny shows. I got into them really. Like I wouldn't seek them out, but every time I would go there, I would watch them. The comedy shows, they
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
quite interesting. So yeah.
They're kind of silly. Like they're very much like slapstick, just very much in your face comedy, but it's like, okay, it's fine, it's funny.
Yeah.
And they a lot of the popular ones kind of like make fun of themselves. And so it's not really like a situational um type of humor, or like they tell jokes. It's more of like putting themselves through things that are funny. um like there's a popular one that goes and does different things. Like he went to the army and he was training with the army, even though he has no business being there, but it's funny because you watch him try and do a push-up and totally face plant, like that kind of stuff. So that kind of stuff is funny to the people. So it's kind of okay. um so yeah, like that's really cool. Like your traveling and stuff is really cool. So like my travels are all associated to my father because he was US Air Force, and so we traveled every couple years ever since I was born until I was about 13, and then he retired. And my mother is Korean, so we retired in Korea. So I grew up in the international school system, instead of the
Yeah.
Korean school system. So I went to international schools and then graduated, went to university. um, and I wanted to come back to what I consider home. Korea is my home, so I wanted to come back after I got married. Um, but yeah, fun.
Yeah, it's
Traveling is fun. Even after I got married, we continued to travel. Our traveling mode of choice is cruises. We love cruises because you get to hit multiple places on your travels. Gonna stay away from that for a while though, with the COVID stuff. So, but yeah.
yeah, cruises are something I haven't done. I have seriously considered that
Mhm,
because I don't know. I just always wanted to do that. And
mhm.
my wife says that, oh, it's for old people.
No.
So
So these days it's not. There are certain lines that are definitely geared towards that demographic, but there's some that are more family friendly. So I take the children, I've taken them since they were like, since my older one was 2, and then the younger one. So they have play things for the kids, like complete children themed things, and they just take care of them for you while you go do your thing. So I think it's awesome.
yeah,
And then yeah, so it's good. We get our family time, but then we also get our alone time. So it's super fun. I
yeah,
highly recommend it after this stuff is over. So,
definitely.
so you
So
say
I
that
yeah, go ahead.
with your I was going to tell you my funny story about the Korean stuff because you said they had funny names. So if
Yeah.
you noticed when you were walking around with your then girlfriend, now wife, um, funny words like the coffee shop thing, and they do like funny puns also, but sometimes they just blatantly don't know what the words are that they're saying. Okay, so like on the shirt they'll say like vulgar things that shouldn't be there. Like the F word or something like that shouldn't be there, but it's there. Or a complete ripoff of a brand, like a copy, because it's Korea and they copy everything. So they'll change like one thing. Like for example, my favorite is Starbucks coffee. So they have Starbucks coffee everywhere. Korea has coffee shops literally like multiples on every block. So you'll never be without a coffee shop. Within 500 meters, you just keep walking and there's coffee shop. Um, but there's Starbucks and then there's Tom and Tom's coffee. Exactly the same font, exactly the same size, style, and everything. But instead of white and green, it's white and like burgundy, you know? So it's like, but that's how they just copy the style of everything and then just apply their own thing to it. Or they'll misspell something just on purpose so that they can get away with not being copyrighted or something like that.
Yeah.
I just call it totally like hashtag Korean, you know, like
Yeah,
so.
and another thing that I love about Korea is the soups. Oh, that
Mhm,
short rib soup that I had, or every time we would just go to the Korean places, it
mhm.
would be like on Sundays or Saturdays because I was young.
Anyway, so you were telling me about the soup on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, so I was saying that, you know, my work was very stressful, so sometimes I would just you know, go to unwind,
Mhm,
and the soup was a lifesaver. That the Korean soup, the short rib soup, was a lifesaver in the morning,
mm,
to
mhm,
the morning after the heavy night or whatnot. So that was
mhm.
kind of fun.
The other thing is funny, there's a lot of like 24-hour places that serve these soups, and there's one kind of soup called hangover soup. You know, it's called haejangguk, but you know,
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you notice in the Korean culture the late nights and the drinking culture of the guys and people going out after work and staying out till late. And the workday also doesn't start till like 10 a.m. because they're all hungover, you know. So but anyway, it's really popular to go to like hangover soup places, which is like a really spicy broth seafood type soup. So another interesting
Yeah.
fact about Korea. Um,
You now got me all thinking about Korean. Maybe we'll go to a Korean place now after this interview is over.
go have some Korean food.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to also ask you, like you say that because you're in finance, it kind of led you into crypto. So what can you tell me like a little bit what exactly that point was that led you into crypto?
Yeah, so in finance, you're trained to be very skeptical because you're kind of bombarded by a lot of different kinds of offers every time. Everybody wants money, right? So,
Mhm,
um, and I dismissed the Bitcoin. I saw a documentary in 2013 or 14, and I thought these guys who are like mining Bitcoin were crazy.
mhm,
And again, you know, I started getting into this space late 2017. But before that, I had some sort of vague idea about Bitcoin being a thing, right?
mhm,
And kind of dismissing it. Um, I I got an invitation by my classmate to come to New York for a crypto conference, and I thought, why not to go there?
mhm,
I did, and there were a lot of you know, it was in the midst of the ICO mania, and
mhm,
a lot of people were raising a lot of money, and I thought they were crazy. People were crazy investing in ICOs because there was no way they could get their revenue back or their
mhm.
money back,
Yeah.
because there's no way. I mean, they if you're very optimistic, you could say, okay, this token is going to have its own value because it's part of the utility that the system provides. But it makes a lot of sense if you make a lot of assumptions, bold assumptions
Yeah.
about things, right?
Yeah.
And there are no proven markets for these kind of things. And it was basically a venture capital sort of risky investment in
Mhm,
any of those ICOs, I would say.
mhm,
And at that point, I was very skeptical, but I met with some people who started basically to get me down that path of, you know, trying to question the money itself.
mm,
It's like
mm,
I, I never questioned that before that, because, you know, no matter how much degrees you have and whatnot in finance, how many years you've worked, money is money, because you're given money, right? You
mhm,
just
mhm,
basically say, this is money, you need to optimize it.
mhm,
And that got me into the path of started thinking of thinking about money in a as a social phenomenon.
mm,
And I went and bought a book that was written in 1995, so it was untainted by these maximalism that I saw in 2017. I did not want to be like sort of swayed by their um, a crazy talk, sort of,
Mm.
so to
Mm.
say. And I wanted to basically get a sense of what is money beyond financial system. And I read a book by Jack Weatherford, and I recommend, if you want to read a book as a somebody who doesn't want to be influenced by maximalism in this space, and
Mm.
just get a sense of what money is. And he approaches it from an anthropological angle,
Mhm.
as a social phenomenon. It's like, what
Mhm.
is currency in a society? And then he
Mhm.
takes us back to the very beginning of what money was in the beginning,
Yeah.
and there are some gruesome sort of history with
Mhm.
money. It's like, sacrifice, for instance, was
Sure.
one of the currencies in the society. The
Mhm.
more you were powerful, the more you could sacrifice. The more you could sacrifice, for instance, the more you would become powerful, because there was no money per se, but you had recognition and
Yeah.
whatnot. So that was the first kind of sort of currency. And then cocoa beans came in as a commodity money and whatnot,
Mhm.
and then we moved into the fiat system.
Mhm.
Oh, we moved into a tokenized form of money, which
Yes.
is, you talk about, any type of metals and whatnot
Right.
that did not have, utility on their own, but they represented something. And then we
Mhm.
moved to gold, because gold was a preferred method of payment for
Mhm.
a center of economic center, in on earth, or whatever, in
Right.
Mediterranean. So that they preferred that currency, and that drove the adoption of gold as a currency.
Mhm.
And then fast forward to 21st century, or 20th century, you start getting into the notion of money being digital, right?
Yes.
And you start thinking and saying, hey, money is actually a very abstract concept. It's just
Mhm.
that we gave it a physical form,
Right.
because we could not, we needed something. And um, and I think Jack Rutherford also touches upon this idea, by examining I think was the people of Yaz or something. There's
Mm.
one island. I know Charles Hoskinson mentioned them a lot, but this is basically, if you want to trade something, their money was a piece of stone that's carved in a special way and
Mm.
whatnot. So the bigger the stone, I guess, the bigger is the value of that money. But the special cases were like, if your stone gets sunken in the ocean, it
Mhm.
still can count, because it's all like mental, right? It's in
Mhm.
your head that there is a stone, and that belongs to somebody. It doesn't have to be in your backyard. So
Mhm.
that kind of gets you into thinking that money has always been there. We just discover it,
Yeah.
and it's a concept. It's nothing. And the the way we're basically moving into this direction was kind of predicted,
Mhm.
in that book. Basically, it was saying that we started with very concrete, and then we're going into the very abstract.
Yeah.
If you think about it, Bitcoin or Cardano ADA doesn't exist. It's
Mhm.
just a recording on a ledger. It's
Mhm.
very abstract, but everybody knows it, because
Mhm.
there is a system of record keeping behind it that can be, summoned with a click of a
Mhm.
button, and
Mhm.
you can see who owns what, and where the money went.
Mhm.
So that's all you need in order to actually have money.
Mhm.
In addition to it being, all these other properties that the economist gave it. From a social perspective, you just need a system of records,
Mhm.
which at this day and age, blockchain does an amazing job. Because
Mhm.
if you think about what's happening right now in the traditional banking system, there are so many different ledgers, right?
Yes.
Every country has a ledger, and that ledger needs to kind of talk to the other ledgers. And every time you send money from country A to country B, it has to touch country C, because
Yeah.
country, uh, you know, B doesn't have a corresponding bank with country A. So it becomes very difficult an
Mhm.
endeavor, and blockchain completely eliminates that friction.
Mhm.
And quite frankly, I don't understand why there is so much you know uh, resistance to this idea of having a blockchain form of money, because it's so easy. It makes things so much frictionless.
Mhm.
From a technological point of view, I think that it makes the case for itself.
Mhm.
But I understand that there could be, political or economic,
Sure.
geopolitical reasons for that to
Mhm.
exist. But that being said, the, the best course of action, the way I see it for nation states, is to embrace this technology and
Mhm.
start building on it.
Mhm. Yeah, so I did a so I was telling you earlier that this project, this my my node was kind of like just given to me. Or not given me, the project was given to me. It was supposed to be my husband's project, and it was like, well, I don't have time for this, so I think you're going to do it. So I've said it many times. Why, why did I have to do this? But I took it on and I did it. I'm here. But part of the whole thing was like I was also really skeptical back in the day, right? Like I knew the word Bitcoin. It was more of a buzzword to me. I knew that it was digital money. I knew that it was mined. I didn't understand what that meant. So before I started this whole thing, as I was studying how to code and how to build the node and stuff like that, I decided to look into courses on blockchain and readings on blockchain. And I came across like the free MIT courses that I could listen to. And my kids were so annoyed because I would just always be listening to them, like either in my headset or in the car. They would hate that, listening to it in the car. um, but they're like, are you listening to your blockchain lectures again? And I'm like, yes. And so the one that was very similar to what you were describing was the history of blockchain and the evolution of monetary systems. So very similar to that book that you were describing. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff. And like you say, it's evolving further into what we're getting into now. So yeah, there's no
Yeah, I
stopping it. It's happening, but there's a lot of resistance and we have to break through that. So
Yeah, I mean, every time there's this fundamental technology, and I'm talking about a technology that rewrites the rules of entire sectors, right?
mhm,
When you think about technological advancements, right? The latest one being the cell phones, they disrupted
mhm,
only one tiny part of an economy, right? So we
mhm,
had landlines, and then they became all cell phones, right?
mhm,
Um, and they gave the incumbents a lot of time. So if you remember AT&T back in the day, I'm old enough to remember the payphones. It was
I
it was
know
a landline
payphones.
company. Yeah. So the AT&T was a landline company, and
Mhm,
when the cell phones came, they were so clunky, they were so expensive, and the
mhm,
way that the technology iterates is that it starts very expensive. It's only for the rich and whatnot, and then it
mhm,
starts. I remember buying, because I used to work, for a U.S. embassy. I
mhm,
remember buying a very expensive sort of a phone for the ambassador. It was in tens of thousands of dollars in the 90s.
mhm,
One cell phone, right? And these services were very expensive. And then they start iterating the technology. They make it more feasible for masses, because that's
yes.
every market needs to go to a place where they can be ubiquitous,
Mhm,
where you can just basically um, you know be a household name, and get the cost down to a place where everybody can afford it. And that's is a function of technology evolving. And they started with chips. They were maybe not that efficient, and then they iterated through very fast
mhm,
to types of form factors that are, you have a phone that fits in your pocket, that
right.
used to power the NASA missions, right?
Mhm, mhm,
So so the incumbents have like 10 years or whatnot to prepare for this transition when the new
mhm,
technology comes. And they say, okay, well, our current business model is not working, so let's do something to actually to prepare for what's to come. So AT&T becomes a cell phone company,
mhm,
right? So there's a kind of a peaceful transition from one technology to another.
mhm,
That doesn't exist in blockchain, because in order to accept it as a technology, you have to kind of rewrite how things are done across many dimensions,
mhm, mhm,
and that's fundamental. And it becomes very painful for developed countries to actually digest that idea.
mhm,
But regardless, the smart legislators, they understand this is what's coming, because if
mhm,
they don't do it, the countries that will do it will have an upper hand.
Right.
And you know, it's much better to kind of cannibalize your own economy in order to build on it,
Mhm.
build it up on a more efficient infrastructure. So I think that's where we're
Yeah.
headed in the US, because they realize that this is, you know, something that is going to change the world.
Yeah.
And the second iteration of this technology was still clunky, I would say, even though in that clunky state, they were still very competitive in terms
Mhm.
of money transmission or keeping track of, um, the monetary units or whatnot. But
Yeah.
still, like the third generation blockchain, like the Cardano, they
Mhm.
are going to completely take this space into a new
Yeah.
level.
Mhm.
And we're talking about 10x, increases in many multiple dimensions. And currently you can have transactions very cheaply, conduct your transactions cheaply, fast, and
Mhm.
better. So like
Mhm.
those are the three dimensions where you could immediately be much better with Cardano. And this blockchain usually, uh, when you want to be all those three, you need to compromise. And the beauty of Cardano is that it still is decentralized, meaning that there's no one single entity, or in the case of sort of EOS, whatever, 10 or 6
Mhm.
entities controlling, in order to give that kind of efficiency. And that's another thing that I wanted to kind of touch upon, Amanda,
Mhm.
is that I had to, in order to, so the first step was to basically question the existence of money. And the second step was, okay, well, I have dollars. Uh, Now I'm going to send them to this address, and you're telling me that it's going to work. It's just going to be there.
Mhm.
Why does the wallet work? So
Mhm.
that was my question number two. And in order to answer that question, I had to kind of educate myself about hash functions,
Mhm.
about how the security of a hash function works. and
Yep.
and and that was a mind-boggling sort of rabbit hole that I went to.
Mhm.
And coming out of it, I was completely transformed. I had to read all those papers. Nakamoto's paper was the first one that I read, and I just completely blew my mind
Mhm.
about how he envisaged the whole system. And at that point, I said to myself, this is not funny money. It's going to completely change the industry, completely change the economy of the global economy.
Mhm.
So that was the revelation. And then I went down the path, and it so happened that the Cardano community and the Cardano ecosystem had so much data, so much information in terms of papers and whatnot. And I'm not going to pretend that I understood everything.
Right.
There were a lot of sections in those papers that were moon math. It's really difficult to grasp, but you read the front page, and you get the idea of what they are trying to do. And then,
Mhm.
okay, you skip over the proofs, because
Mhm.
the uh, if the guys in the conferences are okay with those proofs, I think I could trust that.
Yeah.
So, and then at the end, you kind of get a sense of like what they're trying to do, why they wrote this paper, and why the system is secure. So
Mhm.
that's how I came to accept crypto as a replacement for the current financial or economic system.
Yeah. Wow, that's really great. And especially like for someone like you, because I feel like people like you who are in the finance world, I feel like they have a harder time shaking out of that mold, until they have something that completely like um, disrupts their view of how it works, right? So, but I've talked to like a couple of like finance people, and they're either all in or they're like no way. So they have to have something that shakes them out of it. Um,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if I could make a comment on that, it's
mm,
for all its, glory of being very analytical. And I don't want to throw any shade on my colleagues. They are
mm,
amazing. I've seen some, finance is probably one of the industries where I've seen the most smartest and, people that I've met.
mhm,
And they are not smart in the sense that they crunch the numbers, but they are also smart in terms of understanding the business side of things, saying,
mm,
hey, this business works, here's why, et cetera, et cetera.
mm,
But that um, automatically determines their world outlook. They
mm,
live in a sort of a framework of mind where companies exist. They have shares. There are financial instruments,
Mhm.
and they are derivatives. But beyond that, you venture out beyond that, and then they start basically breaking down. The world starts breaking down. And if you introduce
Yeah.
a technology that says, okay, well, um, there shouldn't only be we shouldn't be limited by what the corporations can afford to issue in terms of financial instruments. There could be
Mhm.
other financial instruments, and that's actually a very pivotal point for financial people to actually get across.
Mhm.
Is that I know that some CFA charter holders right now are very pro crypto, and
Mhm.
and when I listen to them, because they are kind of very close to me in terms of the depth of knowledge and understanding of financial system,
Mhm.
the way that they kind of bridge that gap is that the first thing that you need to accept is that the financial instruments should not exist in their current form. It should not be limited. So
Mhm.
and then once that clicks, then you can open up your mind to different kinds of instruments that could exist, that could generate value, economic value,
Mhm.
outside of the traditional financial system. And then um, from there, sky's the limit, right? So we are
Mhm.
still forming, this space with different kinds of tokens that represent different kinds of things.
Yeah.
The non-fungible tokens are a representation of something that people would buy in the physical world, in the traditional world. Like the closest thing I can think of in terms of properties is probably like paintings or whatnot,
Sure.
except that they are digital, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
crypto kitties and whatnot. I mean,
Mhm.
something like that. And we are moving in that. They satisfy a need. They
Mhm.
satisfy a demand, and they are fundamental in that respect. They are not in the same form that the paintings would come,
Mhm.
but they are unique, and they are rare, and that's enough apparently for people to drop high sums of
Yeah.
money onto them
Yeah.
and own them, because
Yeah.
people have needs, and these are
Yeah.
the things that satisfy those needs.
Yeah, people are kind of funny where they want to have things that are exclusive. And so like that drives that need, that drives that value higher when it's something that's like limited and it's only one of or 50 of or something like that, right? So
Yeah,
um
I mean, it's a well-known tactic in marketing to actually
yes.
have exclusivity,
Yes.
except that in the real world, that exclusivity is kind of forced.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody says, okay, there's only going to be like five, X number of things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the decision of the company to do that, and they will have to honor it. Um, but there's nothing in terms of technicality
Mm-hmm.
to preclude anybody from multiplying those exclusive sort of things to
Yeah.
n number of times.
Right.
So but with blockchain, there is guaranteed. I mean, if you think about CryptoKitties, for instance, there's a
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed probability that you would have X number of these cats or CryptoKitties, because it's all um, based on math.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say that if you own a rare cat or whatnot, it's really rare, and
Mm-hmm.
it's guaranteed in terms of uh, you know anybody's ability to replicate it. It's nothing that you can do about you can't control it. It's just math, pure
Mm-hmm.
math.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So so yeah, I was also going to ask you about your pool because I don't know. I'm not like a super stalker or anything, so I probably could have like Googled or like whatever, but I'll just ask you like directly. So, what's the story of the name behind your pool?
Oh yeah, the skylight pool.
Mhm.
So the reason why I named it skylight is, first of all, I like skylights. I don't know why I like skylights. Every house that we've had has skylights.
Mhm.
Um, and then I kind of start thinking about how skylights uh, uh, help you see the sky and stars and the moons and whatnot.
Mhm.
So I thought maybe that would be a good metaphor for my pool,
Mhm.
to help people to see the moon and the stars. So it's like it's a place where you look up to see the potential of this industry, so to say,
Okay.
so that's basically the explanation behind it.
Okay.
And when I chose the ticker, I wanted to be as short as possible, so I decided to do Sky because moon was taken.
Yeah. Moon pool. Yeah. So I've asked some other, friend SPOs and this in other interviews too. What was your decision, or what was your decision based on when you decided two pools?
Two pools.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I started doing this whole pool thing during the ITN, and at
Mhm.
that point, I had very limited information, just like you when you came into the
Mhm.
ecosystem. And I'm so thankful for the early people who actually wrote guides, because that's what I used in order to start up my pool.
Mhm.
And having seen how intuitive it was, I mean, it's not intuitive for everybody, but the Linux system is just amazing. I love it.
Mhm.
It's everything just makes sense to me.
Mhm.
So I started basically. I mean, I have a background in programming. I've taken courses in Python, and I've always been interested in programming. So basically, getting my pool up and running was another thing that pushed me closer to the technology. And
Mhm.
I started bash scripting and things like that. So, um, but yeah, I started in ITN. I had only one pool, and then
Mhm.
at some point it got saturated. So I decided to create a second pool to like give my stakeholders a chance to still stay with me if they wanted to,
Mhm.
and so we had Sky too. So when the Haskell testnet came in, I decided that I'm going to validate both pools and see where they go. They're both actually at the same level at this point, 30 million each.
Mhm.
So, but we're still open and still undersaturated. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
So, what was the saturation point in ITN?
I think it was in millions. I think it was the last, eh, uh, the, the latest figure that I remember was in hundred something
Mhm.
million.
Wow, and
And I think
you had a lot
yeah.
of stake that required you to make a different one. I mean that's saying something. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the second one never took off in ITN because
Mhm.
it was very late in the game.
Mhm.
I had a very small number of very um, loyal delegators. I thank you so much. I appreciate every one of you. And there was one guy who put in 60 million ADA, and that actually gave me a lot of confidence in my skills and kept me going. So I really thank that person or the group of people, whoever had that confidence in me in ITN, and maybe early in testnet too.
Mhm.
Maybe it was the same people, maybe it wasn't, but I really thankful. I am thankful for everything that they've done. I appreciate that.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
Um, so speaking of saturation levels, so we just had our K change on December 6th. So K is now 500. So what's been happening since the K change? Anything noting on your side?
Yeah, so it's fascinating to watch these systems, and I've studied the parameters and the rewards very closely. I've written numerous articles about them before the
Mhm.
launch and after the launch. The articles can be found on skylightpool.com, and I've written them, posted them on Reddit, where I got a lot of good feedback about them.
Mhm.
And I would have thought that we would have a little bit of a lag, and we did have a little bit of a lag after the announcement because
Mhm.
people may not have realized that they needed to change pools before.
Mhm.
But eventually, the way the system works is that if you don't change, then you will get the signal one way or another.
Mhm.
So here's the situation, right? The K changes means that the pool gets saturated. Now the pool that had 120 million is going to deliver roughly about 50% less to
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
if you stay with the same pool. And we did, as a community, we did a great job. I think all the SPOs and all the people who own the channels, and that's where the important part of this community is, that you have to have these YouTube um, personalities that disseminate this message.
Mhm.
Important updates, not everybody reads the blogs, for
Mhm.
instance, right? They need to go through different modes of dissemination,
Mhm.
and they need to be talked about, and they need to be hashed out in shows like the Ricks, for instance, or mine.
Mhm.
And it actually moved. And if you didn't move your stake, then by now you would have noticed that your rewards got really slashed. And
Mhm.
if one way or another you start moving, because it becomes economically expensive for you to stay in a saturated pool. And the very least you can do is just you will notice the decline in your rewards, and you start asking questions. And then once
Mhm.
you start asking questions, you will find out that the saturation limit has moved.
Mhm.
And at this point, this morning, I looked at it at on pooltool.io,
Mhm.
and very handful of pools that are not Binance, for instance, are still saturated. I think
Mhm.
the two groups that I identified so far is the Adalite group,
Mhm.
and ADA pools might be saturated.
Mhm.
But beyond that, and that's because people get exposed to these sites, and then they just want to pick something, so they just pick whatever they have in front
Yeah.
of them, and they don't probably pay attention to whatever is going on.
Yeah. So it's funny because like there's been a few questions in um, Telegram channels that I answer questions in or on Facebook. And it's happened a few times where people will ask, like, do I have to move? You know? And it's like, well, you should move if your pool is saturated. And they're like, but do I have to? Like, am I gonna or like why do I have to move? Like, what if I just stay? You know? It's like, well, you're gonna get diminished rewards if you stay. So like maybe 30% less or 50% less. And like, and then they come back with, but I'm still gonna get something, right? And we're like, well, yeah, but you'd get less than what you did before. And he's like, that's okay, I'll just stay here. I'm like, okay. Yeah, so totally your choice. So
This is an amazing sort of thing to explore, Amanda. I think
mhm,
this is game theory playing right in front of our eyes, and
yeah.
that's a scenario that I thought about a lot before even the mainnet went live.
Mhm,
Um, and the other scenario, and I'm going to touch upon that, was the whale coming in and just ruining your whole pool.
yeah.
Um, so that scenario is that when you're in a pool and that pool gets saturated, who's going to be the first one to move, right?
Mhm, mhm,
So you have, if I were had all the perfect information, I would rank every pool up, the delegator according to their sensitivity to rewards. So
mhm,
there are people who will look at your pool, and if you had a bad epoch, they
mhm,
don't care if that was just a chance, because the VRF works in that regard.
mhm,
They're gonna say, "Oh, this pool gave me like, you know, 50% less or 30% less. I'm just gonna move."
mhm,
Um, so they don't have an understanding of why that happens, right?
mhm,
Um, so they are very sensitive to rewards. So they will be the first ones to move.
yeah,
And then there are people who would say, "Oh, I don't care. I don't want to look at it every 5 days. I just
mhm,
want to make sure that the pool runs. And as long as it runs, I'm fine."
mhm,
And these are kind of like, maybe, I don't know, I would say, uh, you know, still a minority, but there could be people like that.
mhm,
And then there are these people who just set it and forget it. And we've
mhm,
seen that play out in ITN a lot,
mhm,
where you would have pools that would, they would retire, or the pool operator would not want to run it or
mhm,
whatnot. And the stake wouldn't move. It would
mhm,
be just there,
mhm.
earning nothing.
Right.
I mean nothing, right? Then something like this happened here when the pool got hacked in Korea, right? So
Yeah.
they had these delegators that were hanging in there for a
I
long
think they're
time.
still there. Yeah,
They're still there,
I
yeah.
think so. Mhm,
So that's the unfortunate part of it, because they think maybe they got help the first time they delegated,
mhm.
and then they don't know how to redelegate. So that's the part we need to, as a collective, work really well together to get the messages across.
Mhm.
And maybe we should make these kind of tools available. And we are thinking about a couple of very cool solutions in Pool Tool that could help people decide, because let's face it, people don't want to make decisions every 5 days. And
Right.
and there could be some tools that would help them alleviate that sort of burden.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So for you personally in your pools, did you experience any big changes after the K change?
Yeah, well, I saw a small drip of sort of stake coming into my pool. It
Mhm.
went up, but nothing big, which is kind of how I like it. I would like to grow organically and get to know my stakeholders,
Mhm.
and my stakeholders are quite on loyal, and they like the show that I
Mhm.
do,
Mhm.
and many of them might support me because of that. And I like to write articles that they enjoy,
Mhm.
and because they provide value and give them a more in-depth understanding of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And in the future, when we have the tools, I will make sure that my stakeholders get exclusive sort of preview, if not exclusive, sort of rights to view some of the very important contents. We are coming up at a point where we're getting to a point where there will be a lot of tokens out there in the Cardano ecosystem, and
Mhm.
people will start asking questions about the value of these tokens,
Mhm.
and I would like to use my ability to sort of analyze these things
Mhm.
to benefit my stakeholders. So if you're the Skylight Pool stakeholder, you will get some exclusive sort of benefits from that. Hopefully, when we build the very basic foundations to identify you on Pool Tool.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that kind of is taking time, is that I want to distribute very good content to my stakeholders based on their delegation,
Mhm.
without having to identify them or get their emails or anything like that. So
Mhm.
they will be completely anonymous to the system, but will be able to still have access because they can prove that they delegate with Sky, and that kind of functionality, by the way, will be available to all the pool operators.
Mhm.
So if you decide, Amanda, that you have something special to give to your stake pool stakeholders,
Mhm.
you'll be able to do that. And I think we should move in that direction. Except apart because if you add additional benefits, then you can actually attract different kinds of
Yeah.
stakeholders
Because
to your
incentives
ecosystem.
totally work. you know. Um, so yeah, that's really great because I do feel that that there should be a better way to communicate with your pool. I just constantly say to like whenever I get new people joining my pool, I put on my Twitter or I put on Reddit like my link to my Telegram, like please join my Telegram so that you can talk to me and so you can get to know the pool and stay up to date with the pool and like what I'm doing and if you have questions, of course, like ask me why this is happening or anything. Like you can ask me things about Korea. I don't care, but like just come talk to me, you know. Um, yeah, so I think it's important, and then you're integrating that into the interface of Pool Tool. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so hopefully you'll be able to when we're done with it, we will be able to chat privately with your stake pool
Mhm,
stakeholders without having to identify them.
mhm,
Because people like to stay private.
mhm,
I don't want the system to know how much ADA I have and whatnot.
mhm,
I want to be able to talk to you without having to identify myself.
mhm,
And there are lots of different kind of channels where you could talk to your stakeholders, but
mhm,
there's no way you could prove definitively that that
mhm.
person who's talking to you is the
Right,
stakeholder.
right, right.
And it's a valuable information for stake pool operators to target their own sort of stakeholders and be able to directly in a
Yeah.
cryptographically verified way
Mhm,
to talk to their stakeholders.
mhm.
And it's invaluable, I think, for the stakeholders to be able to actually talk to the pool operators too,
Yeah.
because it goes both ways, right? You could go to a Telegram channel that has been spoofed and impersonating you. Probably you and I don't have that don't have that risk by being small, but
Mhm,
somebody like Rick has faces it every day.
mhm, mhm,
So if you are on Pool Tool and you verify your channel or your pool in there, cryptographically, then you will be able to have access to talk to your stakeholders.
Mhm.
Sometimes these kind of things that we are thinking about, and hopefully we'll get funding in order to implement them.
Mhm. So do you have a catalyst proposal to get funding, or
Yes, we do. It's called a pool tool upgrade proposal, and
okay?
we have done an enormous job of basically breaking everything down to its components. And I think we, out of all the things that we've seen so far in that realm,
Mhm.
our proposition is got very solid sort of a value proposition where we will generate a lot of value for both the stake pool operators and stakeholders, to a degree that some of the stuff that we discussed there has been already copied by our competitors, but that's fine. I think the whole ecosystem gets better because of the ideas that I have, or Mike has, or Gabor
Mhm.
has.
Mhm.
So, but we would like to be able to first build our vision, because it's kind of a complete um, uh, uh, self-contained vision that would make the lives of so many people so much easier,
Mhm.
to a degree that they might be willing to pay for it, which
Mhm.
means that the platform will become self-sustainable and it becomes a success story. We
Mhm.
don't have to go back um, to the treasury every 6 months, or whatever, to ask for money,
Mhm.
um, unless we want to do a complete revamp or improve it to a degree that we need additional funding. When we build this functionality, we should be able to start generating value within the ecosystem.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really cool. You can send me the link, and then I'll include it in the description so that people can just go and read about it and give you the hand claps and all that.
All
So,
right. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's very important to actually bring it up right now, because we have the vote coming up really
mhm.
soon.
Mhm.
The registration window has opened for the Catalyst.
Mhm.
It will be open until, I think, until the 15th.
Yeah, it's a really
If
short window this time. Yeah.
And you need to register your stake before you vote.
Mhm.
And once you register your stake, then you will be able to vote. And then the voting itself it takes place, I think, from the 15th of December to January 4th or something like that.
Yeah.
But the important thing is that you need to register your stake
Understood.
before the deadline to be able to vote and receive rewards for your
Mhm.
votes.
Mhm.
So
You have to
no matter.
download the Catalyst data list to do that. Yes.
Yes, there is the Door, who is the product manager, or in charge of the Catalyst project. Yesterday showcased it to
Mhm.
us. There is a special Daedalus version,
Mhm.
Daedalus Catalyst, I think, that you need to download in order to generate that QR code,
Mhm.
and then you need to download an app on your phone in order to scan that QR code, and then be able to, that will allow you to view and vote on projects on that app.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that too because I was just started reading about it today and it's a bit hectic to try and read when the children are running around. Um, but yeah, I was wondering like saw the QR code thing, saw the catalyst thing. I was like, how is the QR code thing supposed to hook up with the catalyst thing? But yeah, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah. So the process is easy. I think next week they're gonna do a workshop for everybody
Mhm.
who's interested. So I please look out for that
Mhm.
announcement from IOHK. But the steps are quite easy. I may as skip one or two of them. But you download the Daedalus, then you restore your wallet that
Mhm.
has ADA in it.
Mhm.
You have to have more than 8,000 in order to be able to vote.
Mhm.
8,000 is a minimum. And then after that, you go through a couple of steps there in
Mhm.
order to register your stake. And at the end of that process, you will get a QR code.
Mhm.
And once you get that QR code, you download a Catalyst app on your phone, and then scan that QR code, and that QR code will give you access to the voting when it takes place. So those are that's the gist of it basically.
Mhm.
So that's how it works. The only thing is that you cannot use your ledger right now safely to to register your stake. So if you have a large stake, probably you wouldn't want to put it in a hot wallet. But
So,
that's probably is going to come later.
so you said to restore the wallet on the Catalyst data list. So does that mean create a wallet in Daedalus and then restore it on the other one? Or can you just send money to a wallet in the Catalyst data list?
I think you should be able to send the money to the Catalyst datalist if you want to create a special wallet on the Catalyst datalist.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that. My memory is a little bit
It's
fuzzy on
totally
that.
fine. It was like, because
Yeah.
you just said restore. So it's like, do I have to make one here and then restore it here? Or do I just make one here and then send it here? So.
Yeah, so the way that it was described as the sort of a first option is that you already have a wallet,
Mhm,
and since it can be restored on
mhm,
Daedalus Catalyst, it means that it's quite compatible with the mainnet.
mhm,
So it's connected to the mainnet.
mhm, mhm.
So it means that whether you send the money to it or whether you restore your wallet, it's supposed to be equivalent in the sense
Okay.
that the both wallets will be interoperable and whatnot.
Okay.
But again, I might miss some of the technicalities there. I don't remember seeing anything, but logically that would make sense.
Mhm. But you can't have two wallets at the same time on the two things, right? It's gonna be one or the other, right?
You can, like if you have a wallet, let's say in a mainnet, right, and it has,
Mhm,
let's just pick a number, 100,000 ETA, right?
mhm,
And you have the seed words. You just basically take those seed words, and it could be on your mainnet wallet,
mhm, mhm,
sit there, it's fine, and then you restore it. In addition to having it in the mainnet, you just restore it in the Daedalus Catalyst, as long
okay.
as you're doing whatever is
I
the
guess that's
security
true. Like
steps that
I
you.
personally just have the one data list, but I guess it makes sense. You can have it on multiple devices as long as you have the seed phrase, it's still yours and you'll have access to it. I guess so.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So
And you can have multiple wallets to vote with,
yeah.
If let's say that you have one wallet that is 100K, the other wallet has like
Yeah.
50K,
Yeah.
you can actually restore both of them
Mhm,
and then generate the QR code for both of them.
mhm,
And then you need to, uh, for voting, you need to scan the QR code on your app, vote, and then
mhm.
delete the app, and then do it again for the second wall or something like that. That's, I think,
Mm.
Door described that in that town hall that we had yesterday. By the way, you could just watch that, and that answers a lot of questions too.
Yeah, sure. So people can go watch that to find out more about Catalyst voting.
Yeah.
Awesome. I will definitely do that because I have a couple of just like, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? Um, so yeah, let's talk about Allegra a little bit. So Allegra is coming up, and I know that people are talking about like, oh, we shouldn't call it a hard fork because it's such a ugly, scary name. It's not a fork; it's a upgrade, right? So I like that. I like that it's being kind of termed as an upgrade. And I've been receiving a lot of questions about like, what do we need to do for this? Like, what do we need to prepare? And so like I kind of tell people, the just holders, I'm like, you really don't need to do anything. It's going to be like seamless for you. For me, I have to update my node to make sure that it smoothly carries on with the upgrade. And then I was reading in the forums and in the channels and things like that, that you actually have to, like, if you don't, there are bad things that will happen. Like, so you, like, if you I will say, like, if you haven't done it, you should do it. So
Stake pool operators, you need to upgrade.
yes.
If you have a stake in your pool, you need to
Mhm,
upgrade.
mhm. Or else all those people will be very sad. So, so yeah. So, what are your thoughts, or do you have anything else that we need to prepare for that people need to know?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of, I love Cardano in that respect. That's the beauty of Cardano, is that it's very light on the stakeholders. They don't have to do anything; just
Mhm,
hold their ADA, right?
mhm,
Stake pool operators, on the other hand, they need to upgrade their nodes in order to participate in the consensus, which is
mhm,
going to be different
mhm,
past the hard fork combinator. And I love the way that the Cardano has done this with the hard fork combinator, because it's so seamless, it's so smooth. As long as you have updated your node, you wouldn't feel a thing. It's just
Mhm.
basically doing its job, and
Mhm.
past that threshold, you are in a new era
Yep.
that is compatible with the old one. Um, but if you have an old one, then it's not compatible with a new one.
Mhm.
It doesn't have those functionalities, and I don't exactly know the details, but I think you may not be able to produce blocks if you have an older version. So don't quote me on that, but
So
it's important to upgrade.
that's what I was kind of reading, like in the Telegram channels and in the Reddit, like if you don't upgrade with the then your pool won't get rewards. So whether it's being able to produce blocks, or even if you do, maybe you're not qualified or you don't get the rewards. So
Yeah, I think the way it would work is that you will still produce blocks, because
mhm,
it would be bad for the network if the nodes did not produce blocks.
yeah,
They would probably produce blocks, but they won't get the rewards
yeah.
because
So
they were
that's
not
sad.
updated. So
So
uh,
so yes, bottom line, update so that nobody gets sad. So
Yeah, and Allegra itself is a very important fork, as it will introduce a token locking,
mhm,
meaning that in order, and that's very important for the treasury system to work, because before, in order for you to be able to vote, you need to lock your tokens
mhm,
for a certain period of time in order to be able to be eligible for voting, and
mhm,
that functionality will be introduced with Allegra,
mhm, mhm.
and it's a functionality that will exclude exchanges, which is a good news for a lot of people out
Yeah.
there, because exchanges won't like token locking. And honestly, I don't think they would want to vote in order to get X number of dollars, because that's kind of peanuts to them. I mean, if
Mhm,
you look at Binance right now, they're
mhm.
losing a lot of money with their saturated pools, and they're not doing anything to
Yeah,
remedy the situation.
yeah,
I'm not gonna throw shades on them, because they
yeah.
might have security procedures that will preclude them from doing that. Maybe, I don't know, but
Mhm,
looking at those pools that are saturated, and nothing being done on them is
mhm.
kind of painful, because all of that stake is not generating a lot of
Yeah,
rewards. So
right. So one of the last things that I want to talk about, I know we've been talking a lot. I told you, I can't help it. Is like just adoption in general. Like it's a hot topic these days. Like what do we need to do to try and like get more people into the space, to get them to think about adoption, to get companies and bigger picture, like not just like me and my friend, like more like governments or financial systems, like how do we get them to like progress and take on and adopt crypto into their financial operating systems? Like you're in that world, so do you have any like thoughts on that?
it's an excellent question. And I hope I wish more people actually ask these questions. They talk about adoption all the time, but
Mhm,
when we actually strip down this question to its very basics, adoption will follow when you provide solutions,
mhm,
solutions to the existing problems that are orders of magnitude better.
mhm,
And here, sky's the limit. I think that the technology itself is so promising that it could disrupt entire industries, entire countries, entire economies, um, or it could build up entire economies if they don't have anything.
yes,
And that will come in the next stage, when we are right now in a very early stage of building infrastructure. The second stage is when we have solutions built on top of this beautiful blockchain infrastructure that we have in Cardano,
mhm,
and those could be the solutions that will provide those will be the types of apps and solutions that will attract a lot of adoption. So
mhm,
if you are a small country that wants to tokenize your transportation system, for instance, instead
mhm,
of having these cards that are run in the service of company X that charges enormous fees, you could just put them on a blockchain and just pay the transaction fee, for instance,
mhm,
every time something gets spent or whatnot. And those are the types of businesses that will be completely disrupted, that provide these kind of solutions, for instance.
Mhm.
You will get you will get adoption when you provide solutions, and that applies to financial, the logistics, governments. I'd say approach them from a point of view of taxation.
Mhm.
It's not a big problem in the states because we have a well-developed infrastructure to collect taxes,
Mhm.
but it will come to a point where we will have to sort of face the elephant in the room, because the existing structures are so expensive. It requires a lot of people, a lot of expenses to actually keep this infrastructure in place. So, uh, if you have a situation, let's say in a country X, that doesn't collect all of its taxes, for instance,
Mhm.
right? And you say, okay, well, if you put all your economic activity on a blockchain, you will have a 100% visibility on every single entity, and
Mhm.
you don't even have to go there and shake them down for taxation dollars. You can just basically have a taxation levied on their revenue, or
Mhm.
revenue minus costs,
Yeah.
and it will be automatic on the system, just like it is in our system, right? In Cardano, we have a 20% tax on rewards.
Mhm.
It's just there. It goes to the treasury. You don't even have to feel it.
Mhm.
It's you don't have to have an apparatus of law enforcement that goes out there and tries to investigate things. Because here's the thing, all of these ledgers, all of these economic activities captured in a very what we call a, a desperate, different kinds of ledgers that are scattered around the world.
Mhm.
And when you bring all that economic activity into a ledger that is very high fidelity, like Cardano, then you have something very concrete to work off of. And building something or taxing, paying, making sure that your people pay their fair share of taxes
Mhm.
is going to be a click of a button, pretty much.
Mhm.
And we will get there eventually. I'm sure that IOG and Charles Hoskinson are thinking about that. They are talking to different kinds of governments about that. But it might take a little bit of time, maybe 12 months, 24 months.
Mhm.
Um, as soon as we get the funding from the treasury to fund these solutions, we will have really good adoption.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about just replacing things that we have seen in the crypto and kind of being in our own little world and
Mhm.
niche. We're talking about software eating the world, and I think we are
Yeah.
going to get there. I think if if there is a blockchain that is focused outward in trying to bring the value from the outside of the blockchain ecosystem, I think it's Cardano. And
Yeah.
nobody should underestimate its power and its potential in that respect.
No, I totally agree. And like you kind of touched on it earlier when we were talking about how to like upgrade like systems and already existing systems. And so like already developed countries like, Korea, America, like it's going to be harder for them to like adopt our systems because they already have something that they're used to and people are very resistive to change, but they know that they have to because it's the future. Whereas like underdeveloped countries, you just do it, just deploy it, and then they love it because they don't have it before and it just works. So that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, just the last comment, you don't even have to see the Cardano in the the users would not even have to know that their app is lives on Cardano, because
Hmm.
that's the beauty of it, right? It's an infrastructure, so you
Hmm.
could build different kinds of front end solutions that you could have the same app, but the backend is going to be completely replaced by blockchain.
Yeah.
The difficult part for politicians and the people who run these companies is that they need to know where this economic activity will go. Like,
Hmm.
if you have a Korean company providing a Korean population a Korean solution,
Hmm.
all that money, all that economic activity stays in Korea, which means the government gets to tax them.
Hmm.
The whole system is there. When you take that away and say, okay, well, that value is going to transfer to some ether out there. I'm not talking about Ethereum, but I'm talking about like that value is going to go somewhere else, and
Mhm.
it's going to probably end up somewhere in ADA token, right? Because
Mhm.
of the limited supply and all that. That becomes a hard question to to swallow,
Mhm.
because now you sort of give up all your economic activity, or not all of it, but major part of it,
Mhm.
to a solution that doesn't sort of exist in your country. It's just everywhere, right? And it just
Mhm.
gets dispersed all over the world, to all of those ADA holders, pretty much. So
Mhm.
it's a tough pill to swallow, and maybe there will be solutions from a legal perspective, where you would say, okay, this is where everything is going. So instead of fighting it, I'm just going to invest into blockchain building company, into developers, that will provide these solutions that will capture part of that value, and make it stay at home. And at the same time, since this is a global phenomenon, maybe we could just provide the entire solution to the entire economy, entire global economy, and grow that way. So it's not an easy question to answer for developed countries, but I think they will have to address the elephant in the room at some point, because this is where we're headed. And if they don't do it, then other countries that don't have anything will do it first, and they will
Mhm.
develop extraordinarily fast, I think.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Definitely a launching pad for more things because it's just made so easy. Um, but yeah, I think
Absolutely.
that's a great answer. And I talk about it a lot, like with my husband and my friends, like, what is it going to look like how is it, how can we even think of how they're going to do these changes, because they're like, oh, we can't do it for whatever reason, and they're just kind of excuses for not wanting to. I don't know if they don't want to. I don't know if work hard is the right word, but they just don't want the change, or they think it's a security risk, or like whatever. So.
Yeah, there might be laws and regulations in developed countries that would preclude them from like sort of changing things, but
Mhm.
this asset class, and this space is so unique that you need to almost create a new set of laws and regulations in order to be able to have it create economic benefit for your country, and at the same time, not create problems. I honestly think that blockchain, if you want to do nefarious acts on the blockchain, you're probably the stupidest criminal out there. Because unless you use various ways of obfuscating your traces and whatnot. But
Mhm.
open blockchains like Cardano, or Bitcoin, for that matter,
Yeah.
in their very raw form, are easily traceable. Once you identified one transaction, you can just trace it to anybody.
Mhm.
So um, and off ramps and on ramps in the US at least are regulated, so you're identified, so you will be able to identify any transaction that led to that nefarious sort of activity.
Mhm.
So and so from that point of view, I don't see a lot of risks from a regulatory perspective. I think it's, if anything, it actually provides them ammunition to catch the bad guys.
Mhm.
um, there could be solutions for privacy reasons if you want to be in that spectrum, and I totally understand people who would want to be private and keep the government off their financial dealings. They're not necessarily criminals for that.
Mhm.
But if well, my point is that you will have regulations to foster economic growth without actually creating a lot of risk for the countries,
Yeah.
and the inevitable conclusion there, I think, and we will have to get there, because the first stage is denial,
Right.
is that you will have to accept this technology
Mhm.
as a solution, to then build your economy around it, the way that we did it in the States when the internet came to be, right? So
Mhm.
internet in the beginning was only for non-commercial use,
You're right.
and at some point we needed growth. And
Mhm.
again, this history is repeating itself,
Yes.
because we need growth at this point, and blockchain is the place that's just booming with growth.
Mhm.
There's so much innovation going on that if you ignore it too long, then your country will fall behind.
Mhm. But I think it's like really ironic because like my dad was one of the like early users of like internet and like the cell phones and things because he was in like um Air Force and in Intel and things like that. So of course, like the government is the one who was using that stuff before it got commercialized, you know. As a child, I probably was, I want to say like 5 or 6, and we would go on fishing trips. And my dad would take that monster of a cell phone, like a radio phone, satellite phone thing with the box, you know, with us on the fishing boat because he had to be in contact with his squadron. Um, it was like, what is that? You know, and then now you look at our tiny phones compared to that giant suitcase, you know. Um, it's amazing. So, and my dad, the reason why I say it's ironic is because you say it's repeating itself. So you would think that he would see that pattern and he would see that that's where we were and this is where we are now. And now we're doing it again. This is where we are and this is where we're going. And he's not on board. He's just
Yeah.
like, he's like, I can understand the words that you're saying, but I don't really know if it's happening for reals. Like, I don't know, you know. So he's a little bit resistant. And so I don't want to really blame his like generation or his age, but he's like super skeptical. I did get him to invest a little bit just because he's like, if I do it, will you shut up? You know? And I'm like, so I'm like, sure, you know. So, but yeah, so I think that he's coming around. But yeah, he was really resistant in the beginning. I mean, it took months, you know. So
It's a hard technology to get your head around, but once you understand, because it is again, it forces you to question the very fundamental basics of finance and how the economy works. And I wasn't that married to it because I did not grow up in the capitalist system, because I grew
yes.
up in Soviet Union because
Mhm.
we had a completely different economic system. I
Mhm.
didn't know how things were made, to be honest, is at
Mhm.
that point, because you basically had plans, and these plans were fulfilled centrally, and you ended up with a lot of surpluses and shortages because markets were not efficient.
Mhm.
Markets were not there. And markets are so efficient, and markets have been with us for millennia, and they will ultimately decide the fate of where we're going to all collectively go.
Mhm.
And there might be resistance because of the fact that the incumbents are uh, might stand to lose, but the genie's out of the bottle. I
Right.
think at this point, technologically, we know that money can exist on a decentralized ledger, and it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be attached to any sovereign.
Mhm. Mhm.
It could exist on its own. It's like actually the the biggest discovery of sort of my financial life is that the money does not have to be backed by a sovereign.
Mhm.
That's there's a living proof that Bitcoin or Ethereum or Cardano are something that could act like money and have value.
Mhm.
And it could be more than money. I mean, in case of Cardano, it's just like many different kinds of instruments pushed together. It's like
Yeah.
it can be money if you want it to be money,
Mhm.
but it can also be an ownership in a decentralized network. It
Mhm.
could be a governance token. It is a governance token
Yeah.
that allows you to make your voice heard.
Mhm.
It's it's like if you could be a shareholder of a government,
Mhm.
a state with all of its activity, different kinds of activity, different,
Mhm.
we open ourselves up to a widest array of things that could be built on it that we cannot even grasp at this
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
But you could be shareholder of that vast majority of things that could happen on your platform.
Mhm.
And that's a really hard sort of concept to get your head around, because inevitably when you study these things the way I have done in depth,
Mhm.
you come to that conclusion. And I understand the technological part of it, which is marvelous. It's
Yeah.
just mind-boggling. I wished a lot of people in finance backgrounds, in finance, actually took a deep dive. It requires that.
Mhm.
Not a lot of people have the curiosity to do that. Maybe some of them are, just repeat whatever their CEOs are saying because they're really scared. So
Mhm.
they just basically deny it. But it's inevitable. I mean, you can't deny it. It exists and it will exist. And the best way to do it is just to embrace it and build something on top.
Yeah. So like of course like we don't have to talk about this right now, but like I just have a lot of questions about like different use cases, different scenarios and where the blockchain can be used and stuff like that. Like example um like hospitals. Like I was really interested in like the Prism project that's happening with identity management and how it can be used. You know, if you were in another country, you just have your identity with you, and then you can just give it to anyone, and they know who you are. So that's really powerful, and also like protecting your identity. Like my dad was subject of identity theft, and so that would have been great to like be able to manage your own things, right? But for like hospitals, and if we're using like this governance type of thing, like I feel like it's kind of, I don't want to say like dangerous, but it's like you want something more stable for a hospital, not something that can be swayed by the people who are like voting and things like that on the chain, right? So I feel like I'm not sure if if that could happen, or if there's a different type of blockchain that could be used for like hospitals management stuff. Um, these are the
No,
these are the type
you're
of things
asking a
I talk
really
about or think
no.
about. So
You are you're asking a very valid question. The the way I would approach rolling out something like that in a hospital, for instance, right? You know, let's say that there is a system in a hospital that tracks, you know, the patients,
mhm,
right? And you know, the moment the patient comes into the contact with the hospital is
mhm,
the time when he gets registered into the system, and with that he will basically bring in all his records, medical
right,
records,
right,
just
right.
give the hospital his medical records so that he doesn't have to. I hate this. Every time I go to a doctor, I need to fill out another form.
Yes.
Why do I have to do that? And if you multiply that, that's what economists do. If you
Mhm,
multiply the amount of time you spent in the doctor's office and say, okay, this guy could have been working,
mhm, mhm,
and depending on your time and your title and whatnot, how much you're making per hour, the
mhm,
economy loses that much productive time.
mhm,
So if you know, from a very, very basic perspective, right? If you change a system where you could carry your records with you,
mhm,
and with a click of a button, you give um, the hospital all the records necessary in order to, you know, do whatever they need to do with you,
right.
you are creating so much value for the economy.
Mhm,
And it doesn't have to be all based on ADA. It could be a special token that would be issued by that medical institution, for instance, right? If they
mhm,
want to govern themselves that way,
right.
it doesn't have to have an economic value or trade it for that matter. It
Mhm,
could be just something very limited, created. And we are right now creating. There is another hard fork that's coming. I think it's going to come in early 2021. But
mhm,
people are creating tokens, and I can
mhm,
go there and create Skylight token or whatnot,
mhm,
and and I can see the use cases coming on top of Cardano like that, where, you know, the institutions will produce or introduce these tokens in order to be able to govern, in order to be able to track any activities or any type of things that they want to track, keep track of, and then, you know, combine that with Prism, and you've got a very robust system to build solutions on top.
yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited for it because like I wish I had it before. It would have helped our family immensely. Still kind of recovering from that. I mean, like basically him in the system was declared dead. So people, I don't know what happened or what the people got out of that, but we had to deal with all of the weird fallout with Social Security thinking he's dead and us getting phone calls about like what to do with his VA benefits and like all of that. It was awful.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
yeah.
No, that's one of the probably, I mean, I love the United States system and the way that it has been designed to facilitate all these things, but it just is such a in the age of internet, it's such a flawed system. You know,
Yeah.
your system, your information, my information is out there. You know, you
Hmm.
can't do anything about it because Experian or now was it Equifax got hacked.
Yes.
So it doesn't really matter right now whether you keep your social security to yourself or
Hmm.
or not, because it's all out there. You know, if
Yeah.
somebody wants to steal your identity, they can and they will, right?
Mhm.
And you can do nothing about it. And that's the biggest failure of so I would say the uh, the uh, um, the companies that are supposed to safeguard these things for us,
Mhm.
because I didn't consent to giving my information to that company. It just collected it on my behalf, and
Yeah.
because the system allowed it,
Mhm.
because they provide revenue, they are a business.
Yeah.
They centralized it, and that's the system, right? It centralizes information, centralizes assets around companies, and which become easy targets in the age of internet.
Right.
And if and the best way to counter that is to give those rights, the fundamental rights to your privacy, to your money and whatnot, back to the people. And I'm
Right.
not saying that just tomorrow wake up and we won't have a central bank. I think that's going to take a long time,
Mhm.
but because people and the governments will have to manage their own fiat currency. But I think things like owning your own identity and securing it cryptographically, it should
Mhm.
be the right of every citizen. And there's no reason for a company to exist to collect it, and then be hacked. And you as a citizen have pretty much no recourse against it. You probably will get $25 if you participate in their lawsuits, but
Yeah.
other than that,
Right.
it's out there. You can't do anything about it. So that means that there needs to be a fundamental change in the way that we keep the records of people. And
Mhm.
your dad, for instance, a case in point, like there's thousands, maybe hundreds of people who get their identity stolen,
Mhm.
and it costs them a lot of money to get it all back. There's a lot of headache. I'm
Yeah.
sure you
Yeah.
guys have lost a lot of money and time trying to combat it,
Mhm.
and it's a systemic failure
Yes. Yes.
that could be solved by blockchain.
Yep. So it's one of the things that clicked with me, one of the things that I read about and was like, that is going to be a great solution, and can't I'm really looking forward to it. Um, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The way I envision it actually is that imagine you're a foreigner, you want to come to the States, right?
Mhm.
You go to the consulate, and then you show them your identity, and that identity can be really verified really fast, and
Mhm.
you get your visa. The moment you get your visa is tied to your identity. The moment you embark on a plane, you get confirmations that in the US,
Yeah.
you get confirmation that you're coming, and then when you come, go through the border security. The system, let's say the US system or the US blockchain system, identifies you as one of the guys who are legally in the United States. You get a
Mhm.
green check mark right there.
Mhm.
And then as soon as you enter the United States, this is kind of a picture of the future that I have, and I think it's going to come. As soon as you enter the United States, you get bombarded by like bank accounts and banks and whatnot saying, "Hey, open a bank with us. I've got this interest. I've got, uh, you know, you know, two ADA free for you
Mhm.
if you open up an account for us or something like that."
Mhm.
And then you click one of those ads, you download an app, you enter, click
Validate
another button.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, you validate yourself automatically. You open up an account. Before you get to your hotel, you have an account, you have an ID, which is your ID that you carry with you,
Mhm.
and your hotel will know that you're coming, if you want to let them know or not. And you could check in on the way to the hotel. And if you have preferences, for instance, for hotels, for instance, right, with tied
Mhm.
to that identity, you could basically upload them directly to the hotel, and by the time you arrive, your room will be ready in the state that you want it. And there's so much you can do with just basic fundamental blocks that the blockchain technology provides. It's beyond the ADA, beyond accounts. When you tie your identity to it, when you tie your um, different kinds of loyalty programs to that,
Mhm.
sky's the limit in terms of what kind of things could be built and what kind of things could be onboarded. I think onboarding is going to be crazy
Mhm.
because there will be standards for hotels, there will be standards for airlines to exist on a blockchain like Cardano,
Mhm.
and all of that will generate enormous amount of value for stakeholders,
Mhm.
especially if all these transactions take place and require some form of payment in terms of ADA.
Mhm.
You know, so we are kind of blessed if that basically materializes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's exciting. So, kind of like to wrap up, I know that you have the day ahead of you. Something that I was thinking of while we were talking was like you mentioned that you grew up in a Soviet Union, and then you were about 18, 19 when you left there. So, like, how much of a culture shock did you go through, like when you went from there to like America?
So that's a great question, actually. I was kind of prepared because my boss was American. He was kind of like
Mhm.
a second father to me.
Okay.
I really loved the way that he believed in me. And actually, a lot of what I achieved in my life later on is a direct, basically, a reflection of the fact that he believed in me. Because, I tell you, when I got the job, uh,
Mhm.
I I basically told my dad, I said, I have an interview coming up with the
Mhm.
United Nations. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. No, I'm sorry, interpreter.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he looked at me and said, you just finished 9 months of, university. Do you think you could do that? And I said,
Mhm.
yeah, I can do that. It's easy. I pick up languages really fast. It's
Mhm.
just, I started learning English when I was what, 18, actually, because
Mhm.
before that we learned a type of English. You would be very surprised. It was like, I live in Lenin Street and my name is Natasha, and I go to the party. It's stuff that nobody says or
Mhm.
does
Mhm.
in the real world.
Mhm.
So
Well, I totally
during
know because that's how Koreans talk in English too in their little practice books. Like, I go to the party, and yeah.
yeah. and,
Mhm.
and that's not how I learn. The way that I learn is very dynamic, and I pick up things really fast.
Mhm.
And which is why I'm here. And my mind is always hungry for details and analytical rigor. I
Mhm.
find things fascinating, and I just go. And that's how I pick up things along the way, and I become whoever I am. But yes. So it's what was what was the question
The
again? I'm
question is
sorry.
how much of a culture shock did you go through during your transition?
Oh yeah. So the culture shock wasn't as severe as the other guys that went through. We came
Mm.
like with a cohort of us, like very young people from former
Mhm.
Soviet Union. There was uh, a an exchange program,
Mm.
and all of us bright-eyed and like wide-eyed people who had just basically seen got uprooted from their environment and came to the United States, and
Yeah.
heard all the good and bad things about
Mhm.
it. And we were in DC for one day.
Yeah.
um it was and wasn't, because I grew up with the US. It's a subject of another story, but I grew up with the American movies.
Mm.
So all of these things that I saw in the movies, and the type of people and the type of conversations and whatnot, well, a value system, I picked it up there.
Mhm.
Kind of reminds me of people in Netherlands, because they never leave their country, but they're so fluent in American. So
Mm.
they speak to you, and you can think that they are Americans, right?
Mhm.
And it's the same thing kind of applied to me back in the day,
Mhm.
because I was so kind of soaked into to this thing. I mean, I soaked in the culture and all that through those movies. And then my boss was there always for me, and I picked up a lot of stuff from him, value wise. But I had a reverse culture shock when I came back, because it was an exchange program.
Mhm.
So I took. You would not believe it, but I totally forgot how to speak my own, Russian, or my own native language.
Mhm.
I needed probably about 3 days to acclimate, because I didn't speak to anybody in Russian, or any languages that I knew at that time,
Mhm.
um,
No, I
because I
totally
wanted
get
to
it
be
because
immersed. Yeah,
same thing happens to me when I go back and forth between like Korea and America. Um, you wouldn't think because you have two languages, like why would you forget it? But it's totally like use it or lose it, you know? So it's like if you don't talk to anybody in your language, then you're just gonna kind of like go, okay, hold on, I need to like reboot a little and okay, I got it, you know?
exactly.
Mhm. So
No, I do practice a little, but because I've family, I talk to them, so
yeah.
I practice a little bit. It's kind of a lost cause on my sons. I have two sons, and they speak zero
Mhm.
other languages. And when I talk to my son, or when my sons hear me talk in another language, they tell me, "Hey, Dad, speak normally," and I'm like,
So if you want some mom advice, like I obviously immersion like you've experienced is the easiest way to learn culture and language. So I did that for my children. They probably will speak better Korean than me because I technically have learned Korean as a second language, not through immersion. Um, but I just from the beginning showed them programs in Korean and English and put them in Korean daycare, but also they go to American school too. So like they've done both, and so I think that they're being simultaneously learning it from both sides, right? So your sons are young enough that they could still like watch programs in the language if you guys have the access to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do. We had a Russian nanny,
Mm,
and it was quite interesting to watch the interaction because my youngest son was fine with whatever you put on TV, but
mhm,
the older, he's already demonstrating the rigidity a little bit, and to which my wife says that she only speaks English, so she expects me to get my sons to be flexible with
mm,
languages because that comes from my part pool gene. I
mm,
don't know. I'm
mm,
I'm good both with languages and numbers.
yeah.
It's just like my mind works in both ways. But the more languages you pick up,
Mhm.
the easier it becomes to actually learn another one.
Right, right.
And computer programming is in another language. Basically,
Mhm,
it's so
mhm.
easy. Like I pick it up, and I'm like, okay, that's what it's doing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, A, B, C, and D, and whatever.
Mhm,
It's just a different syntax, and it might be a little bit more rigid. You have to spell things out. And I took
mhm,
some C++, and that was kind of the ordeal there.
mhm,
But nevertheless, you just tell there's syntax, there's structure, and as long as you get your head around that, the rest is just basically details.
mhm. Well, I hope your sons are as blessed as you in adopting with language and things like that, because that's an amazing skill to have, in today's world with how international we're all becoming. So, but Umid,
Exactly.
like
And
I really, I
yep.
really want to thank you for talking to me. Like I'm a big fan. I follow like your videos and I love watching your analytics and yeah, I know that you have, like I said, your day ahead of you, and I don't want to keep you any longer. So,
Thank you for
um,
having me. I really enjoy your presence in the community. I really enjoy the fact that you are with us. And whatever you're doing, I wish you the best of luck too.
thank you so much. Yeah. So, I will definitely have you on again because I love talking to you so much. But send me the information of your things, like your Catalyst link too. Like I'll put it in the description because it is important for us to like get registered to vote and vote for the things that are important. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Will do. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching our episode. I hope you enjoyed learning more about Umed from this side, not him on slot leader. So it's totally different perspective. So yeah, stay tuned for our next episode because we'll be having more coming up later. All right, guys. Bye.